Hey you guys, it's Bunny from BunnyCakes.com, and this is my favorite reads of 2012 video. So I ended up reading 69 books last year, and I wanted to go through and tell you what some of my favorites were. I saw everybody else was doing a 12 of 2012 video, so I thought it would be fun to kind of participate. That way I could show you what books I read that I really liked last year, especially since I don't really read the same things that all of you guys read. So this is going to be my faves of 2012 video. I am not dragging all these books off my bookcases, so I'm going to insert their covers for you in one of these general areas, and so you can see the book cover while I tell you what the book is. One of my favorite reads of 2012 was Graveminder by Melissa Marr. I loved this book. It was totally different than what I was expecting because, you know, watching people talk about it over on Goodreads, so I totally thought it was going to be one thing, and then it wasn't. And I don't know. And then, of course, it made me cry because I'm such a sap. But I really enjoyed the book. I wasn't expecting to, and I really, really enjoyed it. I read Blackbirds by Chuck Wendig. This is adult, like, urban fantasy, almost horror. I don't even know how to explain it to you. So I'm going to put the cover here, and I'll put the link for it down below so you can go check it out. It is a very good book, but it is raw, and like if you don't like reading books where people cuss and that type of thing, this is not the book for you. There's, you know, murder in it, and it's just dark and just kind of snarky, smart ass, you know, remarks all the way through the book. It is a fierce female main character, and I absolutely love the series. Book 2 just came out. But the first one is called Blackbirds, and that was by Chuck Wendig. Another one of my favorites for 2012, Velveteen, of course, by our own Danny Marks. I really enjoyed the book. I was disappointed that the book was not what the synopsis led me to believe the book was going to be about. However, I still really liked the book. I liked the world building, and I liked the whole general idea of it. I thought it was an excellent book, and I think you should read it if you haven't read it yet. I know the reviews on Goodreads, it's kind of one of those books that people really, really like or they really, really hate. But if you look at what the haters are saying in the reviews, it's mostly because that they were misled in what they thought the book was going to be about. Everybody was expecting this big horror book about a serial killer, and that's not what the book is about. It's about I'll say an emotional, personal journey of a very strong female character. I don't know, another snarky book. I tend to have a thing for I have a thing for people that can talk shit, apparently, because a lot of the books on my top 12 are just smart-ass people, but what could I do, you know, birds of a feather and all that. Another book I loved in 2012 was The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I'm surprised how much I liked this book too. This is like YA middle grade. It is about this fantastical circus and a battle of, you know, good and bad magic, and if you've not read it yet, I totally think you should check it out. This book, to me, is on par with, like, the writing of Neil Gaiman. I absolutely loved this book. Funniest book I read in 2012 was Curses, an effed up fairy tale by J.A. Casimir. This book, I have never laughed out loud, like, literally every other page before. My sides were hurting by the time I finished reading this. I sat down and I read it in an afternoon. It was hilarious. I felt like Megamind and Shrek and all of those, you know, like raw humor movies. I don't know, like the humor was on par with that, and I just laughed all the way through it. It's a fairy tale retelling, sort of crazy. It's not really I don't even know how to tell you what it is other than to say it is hilarious. And if you're in the mood for something that's just going to crack you up, pick it up. But be warned, it's more adult humor. There's dirty jokes, and it's just funny. It's one of those books that if you read it when you're not in the mood for funny, you're going to think it's really stupid. But if you're in the mood for funny, it's going to be one of the favorite things that you read. I promise. My favorite werewolf book of 2012, which werewolves are my thing. I know all of you guys really go for vampires. Werewolf for me is where it's at. So my favorite werewolf book of 2012 was The Night Has Teeth by Kat Kruger. I loved this book. This is book 1 in a series. It's lots of action. It's a lot of mystery. It even had a little bit of romance going on. So yeah, I think you should check it out if you like, you know, werewolves in your book. My favorite series and also my favorite audiobooks from 2012 were the Unwanted series. The first one is called Unwanteds and the second one is called The Island of Silence by Lisa McMahon. These are middle grade novels. They're read by a very articulate, I'll say British gentleman. He definitely has an accent, but his voice leads so much to the story. This is one of my favorite, you know, middle grade series from 2012. It's action-packed. I love the world building. I loved the characters. The second book, The Island of Silence, even though this was a middle grade book, I was sweating. Like, that island has got to be the scariest place. Like, this woman, she was in my head, and like, if I sat down and I thought about what would be the scariest place on earth, that would be the people on the Island of Silence, because that whole spiel just freaked me out. I was literally sitting up in my bed, holding the headphones, waiting for them to get rescued, hoping everybody was going to make it out okay. My hands were sweaty. Loved it. Loved it. I believe there's going to be another book, and I can't wait to read it. Another one of my favorites from 2012 was The Dead and Buried by Kim Harrington. I actually got this book for review a couple of weeks ago. It just came out the other day, I believe. When I posted the picture of it out on Twitter, so many people replied that they couldn't believe I had gotten it. They wanted to read it. They'd been watching for it, waiting for it. And I was like, okay, when other people are excited about a book you're fixing to read, that makes you really excited about that book too. So when I sat down to read it, I was like so pumped. I was like, I know I'm going to end up hating this because of how excited I am for it. There's no way it can live up to that. Do you know what I mean? And it totally did. I absolutely loved it. It was just great. It was paranormal, and you know those crazy kids. I always say, don't, if you're at a party and somebody whips out a Ouija board, get your shit and go. You know what I mean? Don't hang around. The Ouija boards, crazy, haunted houses, ghosts. Excellent, excellent read. It really was one of my favorite reads of 2012. I'd probably put The Dead and Buried in one of my top 5. Another great book I read in 2012 was an adult horror book. It was by a Christian publishing house. The book was called The Telling. Anytime you can take something that could really happen, like crazy religious fanatical people, and you can throw in a little paranormal and throw in a little actual history with it, it makes it more real. Even though the paranormal stuff, you know, is a little out there, it totally makes the book more real, makes it more scary, makes it more believable. I loved this book. The main character's name was Zed, and he was one of those shy, like, you know, scarred and disfigured. He's one of those broken people, and I just wanted to love him and fix him. He loved books. He was perfect for me. And there was all of this crazy shit in the book. I just can't tell you enough about it. It's called The Telling, and it's by Mike Duran. If you like that kind of book, paranormal, religious, like horror, that kind of stuff, definitely check it out because it is so worth the read. It was excellent. I can't do a favorites of 2012 without mentioning The Walking Dead. I read books 1 and book 2 of the hardcover of the graphic novels. I'm addicted to the TV show. Of course, I was going to dive into the graphic novels because when the show's not on, I go through withdrawal. Am I upset that Daryl's not in the graphic novels? Absolutely. But does that take away from them? Nope. Because the stories are not exactly the same. So you're getting 2 different like versions of the same story. It's fantastic. I can't wait to pick up the next hardback so I can kind of continue the story. I'm actually wish I already had it because I'm going through a little bit of withdrawal right now because the show's off until February. But I say pick it up. Even me, who's not normally a graphic novel reader, like I believe The Walking Dead was probably the first graphic novels I actually read. I was in it. Do you know what I mean? Love, love, love. My favorite reread from 2012 was The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. We actually did this for YT Book Club, and a couple of days later, I went and watched the movie on the big IMAX. Tolkien is top 2. He's I venture to say number 2 on my favorite authors of all time. I love all of his works. The Hobbit is the introduction into the world that J.R.R. Tolkien created, and it, I think, is a must-read for everybody, middle grade and up. And I know people say you'd have a middle grader read that. the words are so big. They are, but the Hobbit is the book that got me into reading. It's the first book that I read and lost track of time because I got sucked into another world. Do you know what I mean? So I definitely say if you've not read the Hobbit yet, pick it up. If you like the Lord of the Rings movies and you've not read the books, pick up the Hobbit, pick up the Lord of the Rings, give them a read. You know, don't be put off by the fact that the books are so old. So what? Don't be put off by that. So many people are like, oh, the language must be bad in them because they're old. You know, they used to talk different back then. It doesn't matter. You can still relate. The characters are awesome. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. I can't say it enough. The last books that I wanted to mention is actually going to be my favorite children's series reads of 2012. I actually read the whole Spiderwick and Beyond Spiderwick series. I had read the first Spiderwick book before, so it was a reread, and I wanted to kind of, you know, read the whole series because I loved the movie. So I sat down and I read all of the Spiderwick books, and then I picked up the spin-off series, which is Beyond Spiderwick. The Spiderwick Chronicles, which is the first set of, I think, 5 books, they made my favorites list. The Beyond Spiderwick series, which is 3 or 4 books, not so much. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the story. I really felt like they had made so much money with Spiderwick. They thought, let's write a few more books and see if we can make some more money. Because you can totally tell that the characters are not as developed. The characters are not even as likable and all of that. So I say read Spiderwick Chronicles. Don't worry about Beyond Spiderwick because it's not worth it. But the Spiderwick Chronicles, I loved all the characters and the whole, you know, fantastical world of it. I just thought it was amazing. And what if it were real? You know, what if? You don't know. You don't know. Could be. We don't know everything. Everybody likes to think they do, but they don't. So that's it. That was my favorite 12 reads from 2012. So out of the 69 books I read, these are the 12 that stuck out the most in my mind. How about you? Did you do a 12 of 2012 video? Comment down below and let me know if you did so I can go watch it. Or if you didn't, just comment down below and tell me a few of the books that you read in 2012 that you absolutely adored. That's it for me, you guys. Thanks for watching. See ya.